Ryan had always been curious about the stars. When he finally joined the interstellar exploration program, he felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. His latest mission had brought him to a planet unlike any he had ever seen. Its sky was tinted with soft purples and oranges, and its cities floated above the ground, glowing with lights that shifted in colors with every passing moment. He stepped cautiously onto the alien streets. The buildings were tall, shaped like twisting spirals and floating discs. The creatures around him were even stranger. Some had long, thin limbs that moved like ribbons in the wind, while others had shimmering skin that changed color with their emotions. Despite their unusual appearances, they all seemed to move gracefully, smiling at one another in ways that Ryan could not fully understand. Ryan walked slowly, taking everything in. His mission was simple: explore the planet, observe its inhabitants, and gather information. Yet, as he turned a corner, he noticed a faint glow emanating from a nearby street. It pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat. Curiosity pulled him toward it. The glow led him through narrow alleys and across small bridges. Ryan had no idea where it would take him, but he trusted his instincts. Soon, he found himself standing in front of a massive hall. Its walls shimmered with soft golden light, and the entrance was adorned with flowers that seemed to float in midair. The glow from before guided him through the doors. Inside, Ryan froze. The hall was unlike anything he had ever imagined. Creatures of all shapes and sizes filled the space, wearing elaborate robes and jewelry that glowed faintly. Some hovered a few feet above the ground, while others walked gracefully, leaving trails of sparkling dust behind them. In the center of the hall, a raised platform glowed brightly. Before he could take a step back, several of the creatures turned to look at him. Their eyes were wide, and many bowed politely. Ryan felt a wave of confusion. He raised his hands in greeting, hoping his gesture was understood. The creatures nodded and continued their movements as if he had done the right thing. Then, a tall creature with golden feathers approached him. It had 3 arms and 4 eyes that shimmered like tiny stars. The creature made a series of flowing gestures, which Ryan could not interpret. He shook his head, trying to signal that he did not understand. Suddenly, the murmurs around him grew louder. Ryan realized that everyone was looking at him expectantly. He noticed the platform in the center had an elegant figure waiting, an alien wearing a robe that sparkled like sunlight on water. Her eyes met his, and she gave a small, graceful nod. The hall fell silent. Ryan's heart raced. Something about the moment felt important, but he had no idea why. The golden feathered creature gestured again, pointing at him and then at the figure on the platform. Ryan tilted his head. He had no idea what was happening. Before he could ask a question, the creature handed him a glowing object. It was smooth and warm, like holding a small piece of sunlight. Everyone in the hall watched him intently, waiting for him to react. Ryan did what felt natural. He held it carefully, unsure what to do next. The figure on the platform took a step forward, and the murmurs grew louder. The glowing object in Ryan's hand started to pulse, as if responding to her presence. He felt a strange mix of fear and awe. Every instinct told him this was important, but he still could not understand why. Finally, the golden feathered creature made one last gesture. It pointed at Ryan, then at the figure on the platform, and finally swept its arms upward. The meaning became clear in that moment. The ceremony had begun, and Ryan was at the center of it. Ryan swallowed hard. "Wait," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "I think there's been a mistake. I'm just a visitor." I don't," but no one seemed to hear him. The guests continued to bow, whispering in a language he could not understand. The figure on the platform smiled warmly, stepping closer. Ryan realized that, for some reason, everyone in the hall assumed he was the one meant to stand beside her. He looked around, his mind racing. This was not part of the plan. He had come to study a new world, not to take part in an alien ceremony. Yet, as he looked into the figure's eyes, he felt something he could not explain. She seemed genuinely pleased to see him, and for a moment the confusion and fear faded. Ryan took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. Whatever this was, he had to play along for now. He had no idea how long the ceremony would last, or what might happen next. All he knew was that he had stumbled into something extraordinary, something completely unexpected. And somehow, he had the feeling that this accident would change everything about his journey on this alien world. Ryan's heart raced as the realization sank in. Everyone in the grand hall was looking at him, waiting. The glowing object in his hand pulsed gently, responding to the figure on the platform. He had no idea what it meant, but it clearly mattered to the aliens. The figure stepped closer. Her robe shimmered like sunlight on water, and her eyes were gentle yet full of expectation. Ryan guessed that this must be the bride. A strange feeling of nervousness and curiosity rose in him. He wanted to speak, to explain, but the alien guests would not understand his words. The golden-feathered creature, which he now assumed was the officiant, moved gracefully in front of him. It made a series of flowing gestures, pointing at Ryan, then at the bride, and finally sweeping its arms across the hall. Ryan frowned. He did not understand the gestures, but he nodded politely, hoping it was the correct response. From somewhere in the crowd, a younger alien floated over to him. Its skin shimmered in shades of blue and green, and it had a warm, friendly smile. "Do not worry," it seemed to say through gestures. "I will help you." Ryan relaxed a little. He could not understand the words, but the gestures were clear. The young alien, who introduced itself as Tico, guided Ryan through the first steps of the ceremony. He was supposed to stand beside the bride, hold the glowing object, and mirror the gestures of the officiant. Ryan tried to copy the movements. At first, he stumbled, knocking his elbow against the edge of the platform. Some guests gasped, and he froze. But instead of anger, the aliens laughed softly. Their laughter was musical, like wind chimes, and it made Ryan smile nervously. He looked at the bride. Her eyes twinkled, and she tilted her head in amusement. Ryan felt a flicker of relief. Even if he made mistakes, she seemed to appreciate his effort. The ceremony continued. The guests chanted in their melodic language, and the room filled with a soft, glowing light. Ryan followed the officiant's gestures, exchanging the glowing object with the bride at the right moments. Each time he succeeded, the object pulsed brighter, and he felt a small spark of confidence. Tico floated closer, demonstrating one of the more complicated movements. "Follow me," the alien gestured. Ryan copied, mimicking the graceful twirls and hand positions. He almost tripped, but Tico's encouraging smile gave him courage. The bride watched carefully, nodding approvingly. As the ceremony progressed, Ryan began to notice small details about the rituals. The glowing object represented trust and unity. The gestures symbolized respect and commitment. Even though he did not understand the words, the meaning was clear. Ryan's nervousness slowly turned into fascination. The aliens' culture was intricate and beautiful. Their movements were precise, but full of grace. Their songs were melodic and heartfelt. It was nothing like anything he had ever experienced on Earth. During a pause in the ceremony, Ryan realized something. He was not just participating, he was part of this culture now, even if by accident. He felt a strange connection to the bride and the guests. They had accepted him, despite his mistakes and awkwardness. The bride stepped forward and held out her hand. Ryan hesitated, then placed his hand in hers. The glowing object pulsed one last time, brighter than ever. A wave of warmth and energy flowed through him, making his heart pound. The guests cheered softly, and Ryan felt an unexpected sense of belonging. Tico gestured toward a series of floating lights above the platform. Ryan realized he had to move in a particular pattern, guided by the lights. He followed carefully, step by step. The bride mirrored him, and together they completed the movement perfectly. The hall erupted in a harmonious sound, a mix of singing, chimes, and soft laughter. Ryan could feel the energy of the ceremony filling the room. Even though he did not understand all the meanings, he felt the joy, the respect, and the celebration of life. For the first time, Ryan stopped thinking about his mistake. He stopped worrying about being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Instead, he focused on the moment, on the beauty of the ritual, and on the connection forming between him and the bride. The officiant raised its 3 arms, signaling the next part of the ceremony. Ryan took a deep breath and nodded to the bride. She smiled warmly, and he realized something remarkable. This accident, this unexpected wedding, was turning into one of the most extraordinary experiences of his life. Ryan knew the rest of the ceremony would be challenging, but he also knew he was not alone. With Tico guiding him and the bride by his side, he felt ready to continue. The hall was alive with energy, and the human had become part of something much bigger than himself. For now, Ryan decided to stop thinking about mistakes and just be present. Whatever would happen next, he would face it with courage and curiosity. After all, he had stumbled into an alien wedding, and somehow, he was the groom. Ryan felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as he stood beside Myra, the bride. The glow of the ceremonial object in his hand seemed to match the energy of the hall. Guests floated gracefully around him, whispering in their melodic language, while the officiant moved with precise, flowing gestures. Tico, the young alien who had been guiding him, hovered closer. "Follow me," it gestured, pointing at the next step of the ritual. Ryan nodded, trying to imitate every movement carefully. He realized that even a small mistake could confuse the ceremony, but the alien seemed forgiving. Each time he stumbled, the guests responded with soft, encouraging laughter rather than anger. The next part of the ceremony involved a series of movements that symbolized trust and understanding. Ryan had to step in patterns across the platform while holding the glowing object. At first, his steps were awkward, and he almost collided with a floating lantern. Tico quickly corrected him with gentle gestures, and Ryan tried again. Myra smiled at him, her eyes warm and patient. Her presence gave him confidence. He realized that even if he did not understand every rule, the sincerity of his effort mattered more than perfection. The hall seemed to recognize his determination, and the glowing object pulsed steadily in his hand as if approving his effort. Next, the exchange, Tico gestured. Ryan looked at Myra. She held her hands out gracefully, waiting for him. He reached forward carefully and placed the glowing object in her hands. The object's light expanded for a brief moment, bathing both of them in a soft glow. The guests murmured happily, and the officiant raised its arms in approval. Ryan felt a rush of relief. He had completed a critical step without disaster. But the ceremony was far from over. Tico guided him to another part of the platform, where he had to perform gestures that represented respect and commitment. His arms moved tentatively at first, but Myra mirrored him perfectly, guiding his movements without words. As the ceremony continued, Ryan began to notice the deeper meaning behind the rituals. Every gesture, every exchange, every glowing symbol represented connection, trust, and honor. He realized that these rituals were not just about tradition, they were a way to show care, understanding, and partnership. At one point, the officiant directed them to a pair of floating stones. Ryan hesitated, unsure what to do. Tico floated closer and gestured for him to pick up one of the stones. When he did, it fit perfectly in his hand, warm and light. Myra took the other stone. When they brought the stones together, a gentle pulse of energy radiated through the platform. Ryan was amazed. He had no idea what kind of power these stones held, but the moment felt sacred and important. He glanced at Myra, and she nodded with a gentle smile. For the first time, he felt a true connection to someone from another world. It was a connection that needed no words. The guests around them began to hum softly. The sound was melodic and soothing, and it seemed to flow through the hall like a gentle current. Ryan focused on his movements, letting the rhythm guide him. Myra's hand was steady in his, and together they performed the final set of gestures. The glowing object pulsed brightly, signaling the successful completion of the ritual. Ryan felt a wave of accomplishment. He had started the ceremony feeling lost and uncertain, but now he understood that participation mattered more than perfection. His effort, sincerity, and willingness to learn had earned the respect of the alien guests. During a short break, Tico floated next to him. "You are doing well," it gestured. "The ceremony is not just about rules. It is about heart." Ryan smiled, finally understanding. The aliens valued intention and honesty above all else. He turned to Myra, who was watching him with a soft, approving expression. The nervousness he had felt earlier faded, replaced by a growing sense of trust. Somehow, this accidental wedding was no longer frightening. It was becoming an experience he would never forget. Ryan realized that learning the rituals was not only about following the aliens' culture, it was about connecting with them, understanding their values, and showing respect. With each gesture, he felt more at home in the ceremony, more confident in his role as the unexpected groom. As the ceremony resumed, Ryan took a deep breath and focused on the next steps. With Tico guiding him and Myra by his side, he knew he could face whatever came next. The hall was alive with energy, the glowing object shining brighter than ever, and the human was no longer just a visitor, he was part of the celebration. Ryan smiled. For the first time, he felt that this accident was turning into something extraordinary. Ryan felt a strange excitement as the ceremony paused briefly for the guests to mingle. The hall was filled with a soft glow, and floating lights danced above the platform. He had completed most of the early rituals, and for the first time, he could relax a little. Tico floated beside him. "Now is the time to meet the guests," it gestured. "Share your stories. Learn from them." Ryan nodded, feeling nervous again, but he trusted Tico's guidance. He stepped into the crowd slowly. The guests approached him curiously, tilting their heads and smiling. Their skin shimmered in different colors depending on their mood, and their eyes reflected light in mesmerizing patterns. Ryan smiled back, trying to appear confident despite the strangeness around him. A group of small, glowing aliens floated toward him, each holding tiny objects in their hands. They gestured for him to touch the objects. Hesitantly, Ryan reached out. When his hand made contact, the objects projected small, moving images into the air. The aliens watched his reactions closely. Ryan laughed, pointing at the images, and the creatures emitted soft, melodic sounds that sounded like laughter. Myra noticed him from the platform and smiled. Her approval made Ryan feel braver. He realized that the guests were not judging him, they were curious about this human who had stumbled into their world. Ryan began to share stories about Earth, gesturing with his hands and using simple expressions. He described mountains, oceans, and forests. The aliens listened intently, tilting their heads and changing their skin colors in fascination. Some of them imitated his movements, trying to understand the concepts he described. One of the guests, a tall alien with translucent wings, approached him. It performed a series of gestures that Ryan could not immediately understand. Tico quickly interpreted. "It asks about your dreams. What do you hope to achieve?" Ryan thought for a moment and answered with gestures of his own. He mimed exploring space, learning about other worlds, and meeting new people. The alien wings shimmered brightly in approval. Ryan felt a warmth in his chest. This was more than a ceremony, it was a meeting of minds. Despite the differences in language and appearance, the aliens and he were connecting. The more he shared, the more he realized that kindness, curiosity, and honesty were universal. At one point, a group of children like aliens floated near him. They had tiny, glowing orbs hovering around them. Ryan bent slightly to meet their level. They demonstrated a simple dance, circling him and weaving their orbs around his hands. He laughed and tried to follow their movements. Myra, watching from the platform, clapped softly, pleased with his efforts. Tico guided Ryan to a table filled with objects of food. The colors were bright and the smells were unusual, but inviting. "Try it," it gestured. Ryan picked up a small, glowing fruit. He took a cautious bite and was surprised by the sweet, tangy flavor. The aliens nodded happily at his reaction. Through these small interactions, Ryan learned that the wedding was more than rituals. It was about sharing, understanding, and celebrating life together. Every gesture, every shared object, and every laugh strengthened the connection between him and the aliens. He noticed Myra descending from the platform, floating toward him with her flowing robe shining softly. She gestured for him to follow her. Together, they moved to the center of the hall, joining a circle of guests. The glow of their skin and robes intertwined with the floating lights above, creating a beautiful display. Ryan followed Myra's movements as she performed a series of gestures. He imitated her as best as he could. The guests responded with soft hums and melodic sounds, celebrating the harmony. Ryan felt a sense of pride. He was no longer a stranger in this world. He was part of something meaningful. As the cultural exchange continued, Ryan realized that every mistake he had made earlier had been forgiven. The aliens valued effort, sincerity, and curiosity above all. He had been worried about failing, but now he understood that the ceremony was not about perfection, it was about heart. The hall was alive with energy. Laughter, music, and soft humming filled the space. Ryan shared more stories, tried more foods, and learned simple gestures that conveyed respect and friendship. Myra stayed close, guiding him gently, and Tico remained at his side, encouraging him. By the end of the exchange, Ryan felt exhausted but happy. He had entered the wedding as an accidental guest, unsure of his place. Now, he felt connected, accepted, and even celebrated. The aliens had taught him a lesson in understanding, kindness, and openness. Ryan smiled as he looked around the hall. He realized that this accidental wedding had become more than an event, it had become a bridge between two worlds. And somehow, he felt that his journey on this planet was only just beginning. Ryan felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness as the ceremony continued. He had grown more comfortable with the alien customs, but Tico suddenly floated toward him with a serious expression. The young alien gestured urgently toward a large, glowing gate at the side of the hall. "What is that?" Ryan asked, unsure what to expect. Tico's gestures were quick and deliberate. Ryan realized that the gate represented the next part of the ceremony, a challenge he had to complete as the groom. The guests' expressions grew attentive, and Myra looked at him with encouraging eyes. It seemed that passing this challenge was very important. Ryan took a deep breath. He had no choice but to face it. With Myra's gentle nod and Tico by his side, he approached the glowing gate. As he stepped through, he was immediately surrounded by shifting lights and strange patterns on the ground. The challenge had begun. The first test required courage. Ryan had to step onto a moving platform that floated above a deep, glowing chasm. The lights below swirled like liquid gold, and the feeling of height made his stomach twist. He hesitated, but Myra's calm smile reminded him to focus. Slowly, carefully, he stepped onto the platform. It tilted slightly, testing his balance, but he managed to hold steady. The platform glowed in approval, signaling success. Next, he faced a test of honesty. A series of glowing symbols appeared in the air, each representing a memory or feeling. He was asked to choose the symbol that best represented himself. Ryan hesitated, unsure which one was right. After a moment of thought, he reached out and touched a symbol that represented curiosity, courage, and kindness, his core values. The symbols brightened, confirming his choice. Finally, Ryan approached a puzzle that tested kindness and empathy. 3 alien figures appeared as holograms, each showing signs of distress. He had to use his gestures and actions to calm them and help them feel safe. At first, he mimicked Tico's movements, but then he began to use his own ideas, smiling gently and moving carefully. Slowly, the holograms relaxed, their glowing eyes softening. Ryan felt a wave of relief. He had completed all the tests, not perfectly, but with sincerity and heart. A bright light enveloped him, and he felt the energy of the hall surround him. The guests' murmurs turned into melodic applause, and Myra floated closer, beaming with pride. "You did it," Tico gestured happily. "You passed the challenge. The ceremony can continue." Ryan exhaled, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. The challenge had seemed impossible at first, but by trusting himself and the guidance of his new friends, he had succeeded. He realized that the aliens valued not only skill but also intention. His effort, honesty, and kindness had been enough. The hall erupted in celebration as Ryan returned to Myra's side. The glowing object in his hand pulsed with warmth, signaling the approval of the ceremony. Guests floated closer, touching their hands lightly to the glow, sharing their happiness. Ryan felt a deep connection with them, stronger than ever. Myra placed her hand gently on his arm. Though no words were exchanged, Ryan felt her gratitude and admiration. This simple gesture made him smile. He realized that the challenge had not only tested him but had also brought him closer to understanding the alien culture and its values. The officiant raised its 3 arms, signaling the next part of the ritual. Ryan followed its gestures carefully, performing the steps with Myra. The lights above the platform shimmered in patterns that responded to their movements. For the first time, Ryan felt fully confident. He was no longer a stranger or an accidental participant, he was part of the celebration. Tico floated beside him and gestured one last time. "You have proven yourself," it said. Ryan nodded, feeling a mixture of pride and humility. He had started the day confused and fearful, but now he understood that the ceremony was more than tradition, it was a celebration of heart, courage, and connection. As the ritual continued, Ryan glanced at the guests. Their faces glowed with admiration and joy. Even though he was human and different from them in every way, he was accepted. He felt a sense of belonging he had never experienced before. The final part of the challenge had taught him an important lesson: mistakes and uncertainty were not failures if one acted with sincerity. His willingness to try, to be honest, and to care for others had earned him respect and trust. As the hall filled with harmonious sounds and shimmering lights, Ryan realized something extraordinary. This accidental wedding was no longer just a mistake. It had become a journey of learning, connection, and discovery. And in that moment, he knew he was ready to embrace whatever came next. With Myra at his side, Tico guiding him, and the approval of the guests surrounding him, Ryan stepped forward confidently. The challenge was over, but the adventure of this alien world and the wedding ceremony had only just begun. The hall was alive with shimmering lights and soft, melodic sounds as Ryan stood beside Myra. The challenge had been completed, and the ceremony was moving into its next stage. This part was different, it was about connection, understanding, and shared hearts. Ryan took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the glowing object in his hand. Myra's eyes met his, and he noticed a gentle curiosity there. Unlike the formal rituals and challenges, this moment was quiet and personal. The guests floated around them, but they gave the couple space, observing respectfully. Tico gestured to Ryan and Myra to step into the center of the platform. Here, they were to share stories of their lives and hopes. Ryan hesitated, unsure how to communicate with her. Myra smiled reassuringly and began with gestures. She pointed to herself, then to the sky, and moved her hands as if painting pictures in the air. Ryan watched carefully and realized she was telling a story about her life, her dreams, and her world. He nodded, understanding her meaning. Then he began to share. His gestures were simple. He pointed to himself, mimed walking on Earth, showed mountains, oceans, forests, and the stars above. Myra's eyes widened, and her skin shimmered in colors that Ryan now understood reflected emotion. She was fascinated, and her curiosity encouraged him to continue. The story exchange was slow, but it was beautiful. They did not need words. Every gesture, every movement, conveyed thought and feeling. Ryan felt a connection that went beyond language. He realized that Myra was kind, patient, and genuinely interested in him. Her world was so different, yet somehow, they could communicate clearly through intention and heart. At one point, Myra gestured to the glowing object and then to Ryan. He understood immediately it was about trust and partnership. He held out his hand and allowed her to place her hand on the object with his. A soft pulse of light ran through them, connecting their energy. The guests noticed the bond forming and emitted gentle hums of approval. Ryan felt something warm and uplifting. This was no longer just a ceremony he was accidentally part of. It was becoming personal, meaningful, and real. He looked at Myra and saw admiration and respect in her eyes. She had seen him try, stumble, and succeed in ways that mattered to her world. That recognition made him feel proud and happy. Tico floated nearby and gestured encouragingly. Ryan realized that these quiet moments were the heart of the wedding. It was not only about rituals and challenges, it was about understanding each other, forming trust, and creating a bond that went beyond culture or species. As they continued to share stories, Ryan learned more about Myra's world. She described floating cities, traditions of kindness, and her hope to bring people closer through celebration and understanding. Ryan shared his own dreams of exploring new worlds, learning about different cultures, and making connections wherever he went. Each story added another thread to the growing bond between them. The glow from the ceremonial object brightened slightly, reacting to the genuine connection forming. Ryan felt a sense of peace he had never known. Myra's presence was comforting, and he found himself naturally mirroring her gestures, moving in harmony with her. The energy between them seemed to flow effortlessly, and the guests watched with admiration. Ryan realized that this connection was more than curiosity or accident. He respected Myra and her culture, and he felt that she understood him as well. For the first time, he thought that perhaps he had been meant to be part of the ceremony, even if by coincidence. Myra gestured again, this time pointing to the floating lights above them. Ryan followed her movements, creating shapes and patterns in the air. Together, they performed a gentle dance of light and energy. The guests joined in softly, creating a harmonious atmosphere of joy, understanding, and celebration. As the moment continued, Ryan felt a quiet strength building within him. He had come to this planet as a visitor, unsure of what awaited him. Now, he had formed a bond that transcended worlds. He realized that genuine connection was not about language, rules, or rituals alone. It was about sincerity, respect, and heart. The ceremony moved forward, but Ryan and Myra remained in harmony, their gestures perfectly synchronized. The guests smiled and hummed, celebrating not only the wedding but the union of understanding between two very different beings. For the first time, Ryan felt that he truly belonged. The accident that had brought him here had become an opportunity to connect, learn, and grow. And as he looked into Myra's eyes, he knew that the journey ahead would be full of friendship, trust, and discovery. Ryan smiled. This accidental wedding had become far more than he could have imagined. It was now a moment of genuine connection, a bridge between two worlds, and the beginning of something extraordinary. The hall glowed brightly as Ryan and Myra stood together at the center of the platform. The challenges were complete, the rituals learned, and a genuine connection had formed. Now, the final part of the wedding ceremony was about celebration and acceptance. Tico floated beside Ryan, gesturing toward the guests. The aliens began to hum a harmonious melody, a sound that filled the hall with warmth. Floating lights above shifted colors in response, creating patterns that made the space feel alive. Ryan felt a sense of awe. The hall, the guests, and the ceremony all seemed to celebrate not only the union of two beings but also the meeting of two worlds. Myra placed her hand gently on the glowing object, which pulsed softly in response. She gestured to Ryan, inviting him to mirror her movements. He did so carefully, focusing on the rhythm and flow of her gestures. Together, they created a wave of energy that rippled through the hall. The guests responded with joyful gestures and melodic sounds, acknowledging their unity. Ryan realized that the ceremony had grown beyond rules and tradition. It had become a celebration of understanding, friendship, and heart. The aliens had accepted him not for his perfection, but for his effort, honesty, and courage. He felt a warmth in his chest, knowing that he had truly become part of their world. Tico gestured toward a large table filled with floating lights and glowing objects. Ryan understood that this was the time to share gifts, a tradition of honoring both the groom and the bride. He floated forward carefully, picking up a small object that glowed softly in his hand. When he placed it before Myra, she touched it gently, smiling. The glow expanded, spreading light to all the guests. Myra returned the gesture, presenting a shimmering orb to Ryan. He accepted it, feeling a connection not only to her but also to the world around him. The objects symbolized trust, respect, and partnership, and Ryan understood that these values were the true heart of the ceremony. The guests began a gentle dance around the platform. Ryan joined, following Myra's movements. At first, he was cautious, but soon he found a rhythm. The floating lights above mirrored their steps, creating a spectacle of color and motion. Laughter and soft melodies filled the air. Ryan felt free and joyful in a way he had never known before. As they danced, Ryan realized how much he had changed since arriving on this planet. He had come as a curious visitor, unsure and hesitant. Now, he felt accepted, respected, and celebrated. The aliens had shown him that openness, kindness, and sincerity were universal values that transcended worlds. The ceremony reached its final moment. Myra and Ryan stood together, holding the glowing object between them. The officiant raised its arms, and the light of the object expanded to fill the entire hall. The guests quieted, watching as the energy of the union settled into a calm, radiant glow. Ryan looked at Myra, her eyes reflecting trust and warmth. He smiled. Words were unnecessary. The bond they had formed, the shared experiences, and the understanding between their worlds were clear without language. In that moment, he felt truly at home. The officiant then gestured to the guests, signaling the end of the formal ceremony. The hall erupted in melodic cheers and applause. Aliens floated and twirled, creating patterns of light and color that celebrated the union. Ryan joined in fully, laughing and moving with joy. He had never imagined that an accident could lead to such an extraordinary experience. Tico floated next to him, beaming. "You have become part of our world," it gestured. "Your heart has shown the way." Ryan nodded, feeling proud and humbled at the same time. He realized that the lesson of this wedding was not only about ritual but about connection, courage, and openness to the unknown. As the celebration continued, Ryan looked around the hall. Guests mingled, laughed, and shared stories. Myra stayed close, her hand brushing against his occasionally in a gentle, familiar way. The floating lights, melodic hums, and warmth of the hall made him feel that this moment was not an ending, but a beginning. Ryan understood that he had found something rare: friendship, respect, and acceptance in a world completely different from his own. The accidental wedding had become a bridge between his world and theirs, a journey of learning, connection, and joy. Finally, Ryan took Myra's hand fully in his. The glowing object pulsed softly, responding to their joined energy. The guests cheered one last time, sending waves of warmth and light throughout the hall. Ryan felt a deep sense of happiness and belonging. As the music faded into gentle humming, Ryan looked at Myra. He realized that accidents sometimes led to the most extraordinary experiences. This wedding, which had begun with confusion, had become a moment of genuine celebration, unity, and adventure. Ryan smiled. He had arrived as a stranger, but now he left the stage not only as a groom but as a friend, a guest, and a valued part of a new world. The universe had surprised him, and he was ready for whatever wonders lay ahead. The ceremony ended, but Ryan knew this was just the beginning of his journey on this alien world, filled with new friendships, discoveries, and unforgettable adventures.